Hi everyone, my name is Clarissa Unger and I am the director of the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. Today we're going to talk about best practices for action planning. I know many of you are working on putting together democratic engagement action plans for your campuses, and we have put together some tips and tricks we've learned from hundreds of campuses across the country who have put together action plans in the past that we are going to share with you today. So just to real quickly talk through the agenda for this session, we're going to start by just sharing a little bit about the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition and the Students Learn, Students Vote checklist. After that, I'm going to dive into the Strengthening American Democracy Guide and Rubric. And finally, I'll give a quick overview of a gamification of the guide called Votes and Ballots. So real quickly, just to give you a little bit of background, the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition was founded in 2016. It now has a diverse group of over 400 nonpartisan organizations from all across the country working together to develop a shared agenda around how we advance and improve college student voting across the country. Through the partners within the coalition, we work with over 1,700 campuses. So since the founding in 2016, the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition has become the largest national nonpartisan coalition working at the intersection of student voting and higher education. To give a quick idea of who some of those groups are that are a part of the coalition, we have a slide to show that. So LEADMIN is one of our big coalition partners. Science Rising, the All-in-Campus Democracy Challenge, Campus Vote Project, Rock the Vote, Vote Latino. These are just a few that you might be familiar with. So all of these coalitions come together to do this work through the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. And what do I mean by when I say this work? So it all starts around our framework, which is called the Students Learn, Students Vote checklist. This is our institutionalization model that we use for starting this work on campuses, but not just doing it for the short term. We really want this work to be something that campuses do year in and year out, every year, not just on major election years. And so the framework that we work around is this institutionalization model, which we also refer to as the LEAP model. Lead, engage, assess, and plan. And I'll quickly walk through what each of those mean. So first, we start with lead. What we mean by this is we identify a trusted source on a campus to lead these efforts. We highly recommend that while all of this work have students involved and be informed by students and much of it led by students, there also be at least one campus administrator or faculty member involved in leading the work and pushing it forward on campus as well. This really helps to help break down some of the different barriers and cut through some of the red tape on campuses that sometimes are hard for students to overcome. But we know that this work is hard and it's very difficult to do alone. So the second step is engage. We recommend that folks engage a diverse group of stakeholders from all across campus and really bring them into this work. And in doing that, what we mean is that there should be leadership from different parts of campus, leadership that are bringing in different types of perspective and areas of expertise, and also folks that have different access to voters that might typically be underrepresented on your campus during elections. So we really ask that folks to think about who all is in their Democratic Engagement Coalition. Does it include staff members? Does it include student organizations, faculty members, any off-campus partners? Is the Student Government Association involved? Are folks from Student Affairs involved? Additionally, is the local election official who's going to be making a lot of the decisions about how elections are run in your community involved in your coalition as well? This is just a short list to think about when you're putting together your Democratic Engagement Coalition. Though there's lots of other folks from across campus and within your community that you could consider involving as well. The next step in the SLSV checklist is assess. So it's really important to know where you're starting from to have an idea of where you can go and where you want to go with your voter engagement efforts. We highly recommend that campuses participate in the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. This is a free resource that's conducted by folks at the Institute for Democracy in Higher Education at Tisch College at Tufts University. Just to give a quick snapshot, campuses that participate in the INSOLVE study receive individualized campus reports that show their registration and voting rates for their campuses. Here you can see a report from a couple of years ago of a campus voting rate and registration rate and how that compared to previous elections. Additionally, the INSOLVE reports include incredibly important information and demographic breakdown information that can be really helpful in informing your efforts, especially as you're putting together your Democratic Engagement Action Plan. So for example, some campuses, if they report this data to the National Student Clearinghouse, have the option of receiving race and ethnicity data, turnout data specifically. So you can identify where there might be different communities of people on your campus that are voting at lower rates and mold your efforts in ways to involve those communities in your coalition, bring them to the table, and make sure that their voices are heard and that you are involving them in your efforts broadly. Additionally, another important breakdown that we like to show as well is that these reports also show by area of study different turnout rates for a campus. These turnout rates are always different for every campus, so it's important to look at the data for your own campus, though there are certain trends that we see typically across campuses around the country. Those include STEM majors tend to vote at lower rates than other majors. Education, nursing, and library science majors tend to vote at the highest rates. But again, as I mentioned, this is different for every campus. So it's really important to get your hands on your own reports and see what is happening on your own campus. Finally, and what we'll spend most of the time talking about today is the fourth step in the SLSB checklist, the planning piece. So once you're equipped with a leader, you have a coalition of diverse stakeholders on board as well, and you have data to inform your efforts. Next, you need to write a plan. So that's where the Democratic Engagement Action Planning comes in. We think this is really important, especially for the institutionalizing efforts, because if you have a plan that you then implement, you can evaluate that plan post the election to see how you did on your goals and on your implementation, and then also use that to learn on and to build on from year to year. So before we jump into that, we're going to just stop and ask for a couple of discussion questions to you all. So first, tell us about your first time registering to vote. What sort of challenges did you face? What was the experience like? Next, spend some time and let's talk about what it was like when you first voted. What was your first voting experience like? What was memorable about it? What may have been challenging? What did you not expect to happen that did? Next, tell us about registering at your institution. What was that process like? And finally, how could your institution have assisted you with the registration and voting process? Great. Now let's move on to action planning. So first, I want to start by saying there are lots of helpful resources and great tools that are available to help you develop your action plans. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. You do not have to feel like you're starting from scratch. There's many different resources that you can use to help build your action plan, which I'll talk through today. The first is the Strengthening American Democracy Guide. This is a guide that was put together by multiple nonprofit organizations and higher education associations after 2016, after about 158 campuses put together action plans, many for the very first time. Groups came together and pulled out some of the things that they thought were the most helpful or most best put in a plan to strengthen it. and built this guide that campuses can use going forward. It's not at all meant to be prescriptive. It is just meant to be a guide to help you all in these efforts. Additionally, I do want to note that this is a living document, so it was not just released and then that was it. After a couple of iterations and much learning, this guide was developed into a second edition, which also includes a rubric so that you can self-assess your action plan to see how strong it is based on other action plans across the country. And in doing the action planning, one of the things that we wanted to touch on just a little bit is some of the guiding principles. So what are some of the things that you should really think about when you are writing your action plan? First of all, it should be comprehensive. So again, you should think about every election that anyone in your campus and in your community has the potential to vote in. So local, state, federal elections, non-election programming should all be included in the plan. Also, it should be continuous. So it should include actions that you are going to take every semester, every year, not just during major presidential years. This is work that really needs to be done year in and year out continuously. It should also be integrated. So it should involve both curricular and co-curricular activities. It should be intentional, so informed by the data, as we talked about, as a way to help reach your goals and your outcomes. It should also be pervasive. So you want to make sure that you're reaching all students, not just the students that might come across the table if you're registering students to vote in front of a frequently visited building. Additionally, the plans should be deep, so not marginal, not just an add-on, and should be informed by learning outcomes. And finally, you want to be innovative. So strengthen old activities that you've done in the past, try new things. Students are always really great at bringing in new ideas and ways to reach students and be innovative. Additionally, on top of all of these principles, we also think it's very important and want to call out that you should be planning to ensure inclusivity. So some of the ways that you can do this are, again, by ensuring that you have a diverse group of students involved in the planning, so in your coalition. Also, you want to be thinking about who are some of the diverse community partners that you can pull into this work as well. Again, just keeping in mind that campuses are all based in communities and that we need to strengthen those bonds as well. Further, as we mentioned, you can use the INSOLVE report to inform your activities and outreach, particularly if your report includes racial and ethnic data, and also offering opportunities for civil discourse as well. So finally, just going back to the rubric for evaluation, we wanted to also show, just pull out a little bit about what the evaluation piece looks like if you choose to self-assess your action plan based on the rubric that is in the Strengthening American Democracy Guide. Additionally, there is another tool that you can use as well for your action planning called Votes and Ballots. Votes and Ballots is a gamification of the Strengthening American Democracy Guide that was put together by our partners at Democracy Works in the Maryland Institute College of Art. You can get any of the materials for Votes and Ballots free at this website, democracy.works/votes-and-ballots. And just to show a little bit more about what all is included in the Votes and Ballots materials, there is an action plan template that basically takes the Strengthening American Democracy Guide and Mad Libs it. So you can see many of the top line pages that are in the action plan template all align with the Strengthening American Democracy Guide. Additionally, one of the more fun parts is the tactic cards in the strategy poster. So these this here is just a snapshot of what some previous action plan strategy posters look like. These take tactic cards that range from voter education to institutionalization, voter registration, and voter mobilization. And you can lay out on your strategy both what you would want to do, what you'd like to do if you have the availability, and also it assesses the time, money, and resources that are needed for each tactic, so you can think strategically about that as well in regards to what you have available to you. We do want to make sure to call out that every strategy included in an action plan should include a few different things, as I just mentioned some of them. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about voter registration, making sure that you're thinking about voter access. How are you ensuring that students have access to the polls? Voter education as well, voter turnout, and again, institutionalizing these efforts. In addition, there's even more resources that can help you to develop these great tools. Here are some of the other organizations that have done a great job of working with campuses directly and helping them put together and implement really strong action plans. Those are the All-in-Campus Democracy Challenge and the Voter Friendly Campus Program, which is a part of the Campus Vote Project and NASPA. And both of these programs have lots of action plans from other institutions that they make available that you can look to so you can see what your peer institutions are doing and try to one-up them. Additionally, if you need direct guidance on how to put together action plans, we also recommend working with the Campus Vote Project, the Scholar Strategy Network, the All-in-Campus Democracy Challenge, and many of the other Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition partners. Finally, for more information or to get access to the Strengthening American Democracy Guide and rubric and links to votes and ballots, you can visit slsvcoalition.org. Good luck with your action planning, and thank you all for tuning in.